We are back again, ladies and gentlemen. Um, we're doing another character conversations. I'm going to talk about Chris Redfield. So, for a little bit of backstory on Chris Redfield and why I think he's an interesting character, and he's one of the better characters in the Resident Evil universe, even though he does get overshadowed in popularity, probably by Leon. I think he's a better, more well written character than Leon overall. Now, Chris is the original protagonist alongside Jill Valentine of the Resident Evil series. And for the backstory of his character, he served in the Air Force and he met Barry Burton in the Air Force as well, and that's how he knows Barry. And that's how they began putting this team together, the Special Tactics and Rescue Service, aka STARS, in 1998. I don't know exactly what role Chris played on the team, but Barry was the weapons expert, and Rebecca was the the team medic essentially. Anyhow, why Chris works as a character is that he has a well-defined place in the story of Resident Evil. A very well-defined place in the story, actually. His main antagonist in the story is Wesker, Albert Wesker, who betrays the team of stars in these Spencer Mansion. And Chris goes to all these lengths to bring Wesker down, bring him in, bring him whatever, right? And Chris works because he has so many developments over this period of time. He has this main goal over multiple games, right? Resident Evil 1, Code Veronica. 3 ties into what he's got going on. He's investigating Umbrella in Europe during 2 and 3. And Claire, his sister, Chris's sister, is looking for him. And they find out that he is, through a desk file or email or something, they find out that he's in Europe. And, I have not played Code Veronica yet, but I know that Code Veronica, Chris is trying to find his sister on an island, and Wesker is on that island, and Chris is on that island. And Chris goes to confront Wesker, and Wesker beats the brakes off of him because he's much stronger through the T-virus than Chris is, and Chris gets absolutely mollywopped. So in between that one, and you see him in Revelations, and he's way bulked up compared to what he was before. They say he was about 6'1", maybe he was 6 foot, 6'1" or 2, and he was like 170 pounds before he bulked up. He was like 230, which is how big. That's like 60 pounds, something like that. Anyway. But he's this character who's always improving and evolving up until, like, I'd say he peaks in his status as a character in Resident Evil 5. That's like his big shot experience is in that game. He has kind of a downturn in his personal on Resident Evil 6. But he works very well because he's always kind of feels like he's not where he's supposed to be. And that's why he keeps improving, right? Which is very interesting to see from a character, is that he has a rough backstory. I'm pretty sure that he essentially raised Claire by himself. I don't know that his parents were involved in his story much at all. But even furthermore, Chris is a character that loses a lot of people. It's almost like his defining character trait is that he loses a lot of people. Especially once you get to 5 and 6. He loses a lot of people in those games. In the build up to the story, essentially, he loses. They track down Wesker in some other building or mansion or whatever. I don't think it's the same Spencer Mansion, but it's another mansion type building. Um, and Wesker, they start fighting Wesker, Chris and Jill, and he's got Chris like this, like he's got him in the chokehold, and Jill tackles him out the window, and I think he thinks she dies. So he's like distraught. He's like, no. Then you go to 5, like the main event's a 5, and he finally defeats Wesker. And after that, it's like a good time. He's got Jill back. He's defeated Wesker. And the writing in 6 is kind of but I still think Chris is probably the best part of Resident Evil 6. He's got the best campaign. He's got the best gameplay. But, besides all that, he's got the best character development in 6. He leads a team against this biohazard invasion, and a lot of them become mutated themselves, or they die. And I'm pretty sure only Chris and Piers are the survivors of that team. Everyone else died. And he carries that with him. He carries this loss, because when we find him, when we first see Chris in Resident Evil 6, he has such severe PTSD, which, again, this is not written perfectly. I think it's a little goofy, but it kind of works for what Resident Evil is. Resident Evil is a very goofy series. Chris has such severe PTSD that his brain has almost convinced him to write off who Chris is in his own mind. He doesn't remember his service. He doesn't remember his time in the Air Force. He doesn't remember the missions where all these people died from his squad. And excuse me. Piers gets him back in the saddle, right? And he goes, "You know what, man? A lot bad has happened, but I can still do a lot of good," right? That's why Chris works. Okay. Now I know Chris appears in 7 and he appears in 8. I haven't played those yet, but Chris works really well because he is even though I've screwed up, even though I've seen people die, even though I've seen horrors, even though I've seen monstrous creatures and I've been backstabbed and I've been betrayed and all of these things, he's still keeping at it. He's still working to get the mission done, right? And there's a point even at 8 where he says something about it's always the mission. Now, that's kind of what happens to Chris, is that he's so good at what he has to do that he's always doing it. He's always out there in the fray of counter bioterrorism, right? So that makes him interesting because he's always at it, and he's never given up though. He's never gone, you know what, screw it, I'm cooked, right? He's actually probably the strongest regular human in Resident Evil as well. What most of the characters do in Resident Evil, especially Chris and Leon, no normal guy is doing. No human on Earth is doing, actually. Chris moves something like a 20,000 pound, 30,000 pound boulder by himself by punching it. So there is a little absurdity there, but excuse me, terribly sorry. Chris works really well because he is that. He's not an everyman like how Leon is kind of more of an everyman up until a certain point. Especially in 2, Leon is an everyman character. But he's really he's like this soldier archetype. But if it was done in a way that works better than a lot of other soldier archetypes. I don't really think soldier archetype. I think most soldier archetypes are kind of bland. Like he's similar. Chris is. I wouldn't say he's similar to Captain America, but he's kind of like the face of a lot of organizations before they kind of went under, like the BSSA or BSAA. He was like one of their top guys, and now he's in. I think he's in Blue Umbrella. In 8, but like I said, I haven't played 8, so I could be wrong. There's a tiny Halo guy. This is on my counter, or my little coffee table over here. Chris works very well as a character. You can kind of stick him in any scenario. I think that's why he's made the most appearances. It's because he has the most stake in the game. Now this could be spoilers for 9. I think a lot of people know about this now, even though I haven't played 9, but I know about this. The fact that Zeno is a clone of Wesker is a really big deal for Chris fans. Am I saying Chris needs to appear in 9? No. He's going to appear. I guarantee he's going to appear. Everyone's saying that it's leaked that he's going to appear. Like I said, Wesker is like the main villain of the entire Resident Evil franchise. He's the most iconic villain of the entire Resident Evil franchise. He's Chris's main opponent. So the fact that he could be back is a huge deal. And honestly, Zeno wasn't a boss fight in that game. I think they're going to bring back Chris and have Chris kill Zeno. Or at least confront Zeno. Very interesting stuff here we have for Chris fans. Absolute cinema. Absolute cinema. So yeah, that was Chris. I guarantee we'll make a video talking about Barry Burton, as Barry Burton is my favorite Resident Evil character of any of them by a large margin. But we will talk about that probably in the next one. We will also cover Solid Snake. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next Character Conversations.